In the Five Nights at Freddy's universe, William Afton has been known for his many sins and atrocities, from the many lives he's taken to his underhanded business practices. But today I reveal one of his sins that has been hidden in the shadows from this community. A mystery so large regarding the elusive Mrs. Afton that has gone unanswered for years. Did William Afton have children out of wedlock? Now I know that's quite a claim to make, but let's look at the evidence to get a clearer picture of his dirty deeds. First things first, we need to lay out William's family. We know that he has 2 sons and a daughter. Michael, the eldest, who is the protagonist of basically every Fnaf game, the bite victim who is killed by Mike and possesses Golden Freddy presumably, and Elizabeth, who was killed by Circus Baby and possesses her. Now all 3 of these kids are most definitely his children, which of course would mean that there was a Mrs. Afton, but I would have to disagree. Obviously a woman was the mother of all 3 of these children, but I don't believe she was ever married to Afton, and that is for one reason. None of Afton's children are ever specifically given the name of Afton. In every depiction of Mike, he writes his name as just that, Mike. Elizabeth, while we hear her speak directly to William, is never specifically mentioned as Elizabeth Afton, not even in Henry's ending speech in Pizza Sim. So if all the kids aren't named Afton, is their mother's maiden name in the games? I mean, it would be pretty silly if I made such a wild claim, especially when we barely have any actual names given to us in this series. There's no way, right? In sister location, we had the lore drop that Mike, the night guard from Fnaf 1, was the player of sister location, and of course William Afton's son. When we got this revelation, it recontextualized the whole series. The night guards we all thought were unrelated in each game could now possibly be none other than Mike. We did have this suspicion after Fnaf 4, as Scott implied that the first 4 games were one cohesive story, but sister location confirmed this. Now, while the Fnaf 3 guard is basically confirmed to be Mike, as the Fright guard presumably burned down Fazbear Frights intentionally to kill William, this just leaves Fnaf 2, with many believing Fritz Smith, the custom night player, to be Mike, as he's fired for the same reasons as Mike is in Fnaf 1. With that context, we start to put together a story, with Michael possibly assisting his father in some misdeeds within Fazbear Entertainment. We know that William probably snuck back into Freddy's in Fnaf 2 under a different name, as he is implied to be the day guard in the phone calls. And if Mike is Fritz Smith, there's a pretty obvious reason he would also conceal his name, as he would be associated with William. So if Mike was hiding his identity in Fnaf 2 as Fritz Smith, then why would he use his first name in Fnaf 1, yet still conceal his last name? If you're trying to infiltrate a company, using any part of your real name kind of takes away the whole sneaky part of it. It makes total sense in Fnaf 2 to conceal his name, as it's not too long after the murders at Freddy's. But to get lazy seems odd. This has bothered me for years. And then it hit me. Mike Schmidt is his real name. He isn't an Afton here because he went by his mom's maiden name, Schmidt. Married people don't typically use the mother's maiden name when naming the kids, but you know who would? An unmarried couple. And I think Mike has reason to give up concealing his name as enough time has passed. But I mean, that's just a name. I don't think it confirms William being an unchaste sleaze. My William would never be such a man, right? Unfortunately, this goes deeper though, as there has always been confusion about William Afton having 2 houses. In the Fnaf 4 minigames, we see a house right down the street from Fredbear's. This house is pretty clearly in the middle of a neighborhood, but literally in the exact same game, on the title screen we see a house in the middle of the woods on a hill. That's supposedly the gameplay house. Yet these 2 houses are so clearly different. We again see this house on the hill in Help Wanted's Curse of Dreadbear DLC, overlooking a lake. Now at this point, it seemed that the neighborhood house was written out of the story and replaced with the house on the hill. But to that I say no. Because sister location tells us that they both exist. In the breaker room on night 2, we see 3 observations showing both the Fnaf 4 gameplay house, usually suggested to be the house on the hill, and the minigame house, both on the map and both distinct. But it gets even worse because after Michael gets scooped by Ennard, he walks through a neighborhood. And unless the bunker pays handsomely, I doubt Michael even moved out of his parents' house. So we have 2 houses that are both Aftons, right? Well, to answer this one, we turn to Secret of the Mimic. In Secret of the Mimic, we explore an extremely familiar location. We have a house on a hill overlooking a lake, with a curious underground facility. The most damning of this evidence is Fredbear's is nowhere in sight. Fredbear's is in the city, just as we see in Fnaf 4 minigames, proving that the minigame house does in fact exist, and that the house on the hill isn't even made yet. Instead, Edward Murray and MCM are located in the middle of the woods, with us finding out that William bought all of the land. After MCM burns down, William would be able to build his own house later. Now, since Afton isn't living in the woods yet, and since it was the 70s, he most likely was cohabitating with a woman! That woman being the mother of Michael, and would continue to live with her as his house was being built. This would explain why Afton has observations of the Fnaf 4 minigame neighborhood. It was his second house where he could keep an eye on his kids. I guess Afton will care always for his kids. Now, before I reveal my final damning piece of evidence for William's debauchery, consider liking and subscribing if you're saddened by William's licentiousness, just as I am. Anyway, going back to sister location, there's a TV show that Mike watches between nights, a soap opera called The Immortal and the Restless. And this is not put in here by mistake. The Immortal and the Restless features 3 important characters: Vlad the vampire, Clara his mistress, and the baby. Each episode revolves around Clara explaining that to Vlad how the baby is his, where Vlad denies it, saying that the baby isn't mine. The irony, however, is that the baby is obviously his. He is the father! The baby is a little vampire and does vampire things, like sleeping on the ceiling, turning into a bat, and the list goes on. And for some reason, when people try to connect this to the lore, they overlook the fact that the baby is in fact Vlad's, which is literally crucial to understanding this telenovela imitation. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that Vlad, who's clad in purple, is none other than William Afton, and the baby, in the most literal interpretation, is Mike. When Sister Location originally came out, I believe this melodrama was supposed to tell us that Mike was William's son. Of course, the fandom didn't pick up on the clues like this, and we ended up with Mike Trap, which may be the only time Scott ever deconfirmed a theory. Reeling it back in, the point was always to tell us that Michael is William's son. However, there's one crucial detail, consistently repeated throughout Immortal and the Restless. Vlad consistently denies that the baby is his. If Afton was supposedly married to a Mrs. Afton, why would he deny that Michael is his son? And furthermore, if Clara is believed to be Mrs. Afton, why would she be referred to as Vlad's mistress? And Clara doesn't even make sense to be any other character in this case, because why would someone like Henry or Fazbear as Clara try to tell William the baby is his? Clara has to be William's mistress. Now, let's bring out our dictionaries, because the usual use of the word mistress can imply that William had an affair with Fiona. And I don't even want to touch that theory with a 14.5 long pole, because that opens a whole can of David Murray-shaped worms, and I don't feel like fishing. The other definition of a mistress fits way better here, as it can mean the head of the household, or being the matriarch of a family, and having a kid kind of qualifies her for that position. So in other words, neither Clara nor William are married to anyone or each other. This leaves baby Michael, who's a Schmidt. So that would make this woman Clara Schmidt, William's lover. Now, as silly as this theory is, it actually clears up a lot of questions in this series, like why is Mike a Schmidt, and what Immortal and the Restless is trying to tell us. But it also opens the way to other theories, like a Mrs. Afton possibly existing at some point to be Vanessa's mother, if you believe William is literally her father in the therapy tapes. Anywho, with a new sin for William to answer to on the list, what'd you think? I'd love to hear in the comments down below. And since you'll already be down there, you might as well like and subscribe. There should also be a video on screen now that may pique your interest, so definitely consider watching that next. And as always, thanks for watching.